Welcome back, we are here with another character design ranking, and this time we're doing the Ultimate Spider-Man series. Right off the bat, a lot of people don't like the show because it replaced Spectacular Spider-Man, the god tier Spider-Man show that only lasted for 2 seasons. And I think it was because Marvel wanted the animated Spider-Man to have more synergy with the MCU, so that's why they kind of started the new animated universe with this. So yeah, for a lot of people it's already starting on shaky ground, but I do appreciate that they got Spider-Man to get involved with the larger Marvel universe with this show. Because Spectacular Spider-Man, it was kind of like the Raimi movies where they were just restricted to Spider-Man characters only, but with this we got to see the whole larger Marvel universe interact with Spider-Man. This show was meant to be based on the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series, but it wasn't really that similar. There are some similarities with designs and stuff, but you know, Spectacular Spider-Man was actually much closer to that comic series than this show was. So if you haven't seen me do this before, if they usually stick with the traditional design and don't make any risks or changes, it's usually a C. If they make some bad changes, usually below a C, and usually with some good changes, it's above. Alright, so let's start with the titular character, Spider-Man. So right off the bat, I really like the color choice for the Spider-Man. It's very, you know, mellow, and the dark blue, I really like the dark blue. And I'm pretty sure this was the first mainstream design to have Spider-Man's shoulders not connect with his glove area, you know? And honestly, to me, I know a lot of people don't like that, but it kind of works for me. And they didn't go bombastic, like they didn't like try to add a bunch of shit that didn't make any sense. You can definitely tell it's a traditional Spider-Man. Like the only changes are the shoulders, I'm pretty sure, and that's pretty subtle. This has nothing to do with the design, but his voice, what's his name? The guy who voices him, I don't like his Spider-Man voice, bro. He's annoying as fuck. Like going from Spectacular Spider-Man to hearing that, oh my God, disgusting. I think I'm gonna put Spider-Man at a B. Pretty solid. It's a pretty solid design. Alright, so I think we're gonna just go through all the heroes first. So we have Nova. By the way, I only saw like the first 3 seasons as this was coming out, and this was like what, more than 10 years ago, like 2012. So my memory's a bit shaky with stuff, and I have no idea what happens in the later seasons, but you know, forgive me, okay? Forgive me. So we have Nova, who was part of the original team, and to be honest, was a bit of an asshole, but it is what it is. Listen, from what I can see and what I remember, his Nova costume was just the original Sam Alexander costume. I think that's his name. So it wasn't the original Nova, but he was like this version of Nova, the young kid. So yeah, pretty traditional design that aligns with the comic version. Nothing really screams out to me about why it's awesome or why it stands out or anything. So I'm gonna put Nova at a C.
Okay, so I was actually wrong about this one. So in the comic, Sam Alexander's Nova's helmet is actually black, and it looks so much better than what they did here. I think it's because my first impression of Sam Alexander Nova was from this, so that's why I thought it was the original version. I'm sorry, if I knew that, I would have put him at a D because the black version looks so much cooler.
Alright, let's continue with the OGs. Let's do White Tiger. Okay, again, pretty traditional look, pretty, you know, pretty aligned with the comic version of her. Although I'm pretty sure in the comics her line stripes, they're black, I'm pretty sure. They're not faint gray on the costume. But to be fair, her hair and her eyes are already dark, so you kind of don't want to take away the silhouette that makes with the dark stripes. We're gonna go with this. We'll give it a B, we'll be generous. Alright, let's go with Luke Cage. So Luke Cage, what is happening here? I remember when this show started, I had a pretty loose idea of who Luke Cage was, and when I found out this was meant to be Luke Cage, I was like, what? What do they do to my mans? What do they do? This is not Luke Cage, man. And I know he goes by Power Man, like that's a superhero name, but you know, that's a pretty fucking lame name, bro. They took so much of his street vibes away, and it kind of just, I don't know, it's not Luke Cage, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't what I think of when I think of Luke Cage. He doesn't have this armor shit on him, he doesn't have sunnies. Like, what? And I know it's meant to be a younger version, trust me, I know, they're like teenagers, they're in high school, but design choices are still there, you know, that doesn't change anything about him. I don't know, man. Maybe there's a different version in the show where, I don't know, he changes costume and I just haven't seen that. But this version, this OG version, I'm not a fan. I'm sorry, man. I didn't mind it when I was a kid, but now looking at it and knowing that's meant to be Luke Cage and being more familiar with the character, this doesn't hit, man. This doesn't hit. This is going into D. Sorry, Luke Cage. Why do I have 2 Dr. Octopuses? What the hell? Okay. Time out. Alright, we're back, we fixed it. Anyways, moving on to the other member of this original team, we have Iron Fist, Danny Rand Iron Fist. Gosh, I feel like I've talked about Iron Fist a lot on this channel recently, but here we go again. So this Iron Fist is obviously not the traditional look with the V shape exposing his chest with the dragon burn tattoo thing. That design, I know it's a bit corny nowadays because it's very 70s, but I'm a big fan of that design, what can I say? And this design, I remember first seeing it and I was like, it's alright, it's alright. They made some changes and yes, I understand they can't really do the V-shape thing, I guess, because it's kind of a teenager, I'm pretty sure. Anyways, it's a pretty decent modern look for Iron Fist. The one thing I never liked about it though was his hair just flopping out on the back. I don't know if anyone's already made an edit on the internet, but I feel like he would just look so much cooler without the hair just flopping back and forth. I don't know, maybe it's just me. He looks okay without the mask though. However, I also do understand they had to simplify his design so they can animate him, because if they make a bunch of fucking complicated designs, then it'll be just much harder to animate, because you know he's a supporting character, he's gonna be appearing a lot, so I understand why they simplified it. I'm gonna give Iron Fist a B. Should I be generous? I think I'm gonna give him a B. Or C. Should I be less generous? I can't decide. We'll go with B. He looks fine. He looks good actually. I'm just being nitpicky because I like the traditional Iron Fist design. But this makes more sense in 2012. Alright, next hero. Let's go with Squirrel Girl. I don't really remember Squirrel Girl appearing. Maybe she appeared in the later season, or maybe she had like a guest appearance in one episode that I saw, but I don't really remember. She looks like what Squirrel Girl looked like back then, so I'm just gonna give her a C. Alright, we have Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger, they look cool, I guess. Actually, it does kind of deviate a little from the comic book form. Let me just double check. So yeah, it's a bit different. I like how they kind of, you know, they spiced up the colors just a little bit with the shading and stuff, because in the comics they're just traditional, just all white and just all black, which might be a bit boring in animation. So, you know, props on them. So for that, I think I'll give them a B. Maybe like between a C and B, but yeah, we'll give him a B. We'll give him a B. Next we have Miles Morales. I remember this being a surprise when I first saw the episode, the Spider-Verse episode. It was pretty sick. In his first appearance, it was voiced by Donald Glover, which made it twice as sick. But just looking at his design, it's just, you know, it's regular Miles Morales, you know? Honestly, really not much to say about it. It's literally just Miles Morales from the comics, so he does look really cool. Sometimes I have to stick with my guns and what I say, and you know, just because the comic design is cool doesn't mean, you know, this is cool. I mean, it is cool, but I hope this makes sense. I'm putting him in a C. No innovation, you know? Alright, next let's do Scarlet Spider. Okay, so I was really confused by this. So I was gathering all the images for all the character designs, and I learned that was Scarlet Spider and he was a big part of the show in the later seasons, and I was like, okay, I'll grab a picture of him. And it's just Kane. That's not Scarlet Spider, that's Kane. But for some reason they call him Scarlet Spider and he has the same personality as Kane. What? So I guess he's very different from the comic book Scarlet Spider, so I'm gonna give him an A. Kidding, obviously. So I'm gonna look at this as Kane rather than Scarlet Spider, because what the fuck? He looks pretty cool. It's pretty simple as well. I'm pretty sure that's just his design from the comics, so not much to say. I'm feeling a C, and this is just going off nothing. Like, I haven't seen the season where he's introduced, so I think they're called like Web Warriors or some shit, I don't know. Alright, another spider variant, we'll go with Iron Spider. So Iron Spider in this show, I'm pretty sure his mantle was passed down to Amadeus Cho, or Amadeus Cho. Why did they give Amadeus Cho the Iron Spider suit? You're really asking the wrong gal here. I did not watch that season. Or maybe I did. No, I think this was a later season. Anyways, doesn't really make much sense to me, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Iron Spider, this from the Civil War comic, looks badass. However, what can I say? Just literally ripped from the comics once again. If we were just ranking just typical Spider-Man costumes, I'll put this way up there because it's so simple and it's so cool. But that's not how this works, guys, okay? That's not how this works. It looks cool, but I'm gonna have to put him at a C because it's very traditional and, you know, once again, Not many changes, but I do recognize that it's a very cool suit. Next, Web Warrior. I don't even know if that's the right term for these guys. I'm just completely guessing here. We have Agent Venom. So I'm gonna assume that's Flash Thompson under there, so not that it matters, I guess. And I think this might be the first animated version of Agent Venom we got, right? Because he was pretty recent at the time of this show, so. Also, one thing to note about the show is that they don't really have any stylistic, you know, character builds. Because Spectacular Spider-Man, you had the very like emphasized big shoulders and big backs and like sometimes small legs. However, this show is very one-to-one. There's no stylistic proportions anywhere, so I just wanted to note that, and you know, it kind of makes things less interesting, but that's okay. So I'm just gonna say this, Agent Venom is a C because, you know, just a comic form, which is nothing wrong with it. It looks cool. Just the typical. So next we have Wolverine, and Wolverine's first appearance was in the body swap episode, I'm pretty sure. And you know what? I'm really happy that they went with this costume rather than the traditional blue and yellow. Because this costume, the brown costume, it just doesn't get used enough. Like, look at how sick that looks, man. Look at how sick that looks. Does it look good as the Earth's Mightiest Heroes version? I think if they took like the stylistic choices of the Earth's Mightiest Heroes version with this color scheme, that would have been mint. But you know, what can you do, man? What can you do? I'm just so glad that they went with this costume design. And that body swap episode was actually based on an issue that happened in the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series, so you know, that's fun. Although like the comic version was a bit weird because Wolverine kisses a 15-year-old MJ in Peter's body, or like they do like something. I don't want to think about it, but that was kind of weird. Anyways, just for going with this, the untraditional Wolverine costume, the blue and yellow, just for staying away from that, I'm gonna give this Wolverine a B. Alright, I guess slowly delving into the villain territory here, I guess we can go with Deadpool because he's the anti-hero. From what I remember in Deadpool's introduction episode, that was pretty impactful for the character because that was Deadpool's first TV animated show appearance. As in like not a cameo, but he was like a full character and he was featured for the whole episode. Also, he kept up with a lot of Spidey's, you know, fourth wall breaking because, you know, he's Deadpool.
Ever since I can remember, I've always been a fighter.
How am I in your origin story?
And this was way before the Deadpool movie came out, so he wasn't really a mainstream character then. So looking at his design, it's just a 616 Deadpool. But I'm thinking about giving this a B, you know why? Because when you look at the Deadpool from the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series, which they could have easily based this off, that would have been a C or D. Like, I don't know what they were thinking with that design. Like, it's not terrible, but it's just like, what? So, you know, I'm gonna have to give in to the smelly, toxic Deadpool fandom here, and I'm gonna have to give Deadpool a B. Alright, let's just get this out of the way, because I just see him just standing out so badly. So, Sandman, here's a C. Come on. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Okay, so let's do Venom. So Venom just looks like Venom, bro. And it's hard to rank someone like Venom because I know if they made any crazy design changes, it would be very polarizing for the audience and they'll go, oh, why'd you do that? Why would you do this? Just stick with the original. There was nothing to fix. So yeah, I get why they didn't make any big changes. I know, because even then, like, what changes would you even make apart from removing the entire spider symbol like Sony movies did? Sorry, Venom. That's gonna be a C, even though you look pretty cool as a character. That's a C. Actually, just one more thing about Venom. The one thing they could have done was use his Ultimate Spider-Man comic design, because that design is pretty iconic, and I know a lot of people played the Ultimate Spider-Man video game with Venom in it. So if they had adapted that version of Venom, that would have been pretty sick. And I know I was just clowning about, you know, removing the spider symbol, but they kind of made it work, you know, because he was just a big burly monster. So if they had done that, then yes, that would have been, you know, that probably would have been a B or an A even, because that would have been like a great adaptation. Good selection, good choices. Alright, next we have Taskmaster in his first version. To be honest, I'm so surprised how integrated he was in the show. I'm glad they went with the full skull face and they didn't chicken out like the MCU movies. So, you know, I guess I'm not streaming the show to China because apparently that was the reason why the MCU didn't use a full skull face for the MCU movies, if you didn't already know that. Because apparently China has this thing about they don't want any skull imagery in any of the costumes in the media. I'm gonna give this Taskmaster a C. But let's go on to the second Taskmaster version without the cape, and boy, this looks badass. So the first Taskmaster, obviously a very cool design, but you know, nothing innovative. But this Taskmaster, woo! Woo-wee! It kind of reminds me of the Spider-Man PS4 version. Some people might not like the teched out look and might prefer the traditional, but this version, to me, I think this looks pretty damn sick. Man, I'm a big fan of when character designers, they use white sparingly, but they use it so well as well. And this Taskmaster design, God damn, like his white shiny armor on his legs and his arms and the hood as well. Like he doesn't need a cape because he just looks more agile here without it. I'm probably gonna put Taskmaster at an A. This version of Taskmaster, I mean. Alright, so next we're gonna go with the Lizard. So the Lizard, they made some changes, I guess. He's a very big-headed boy, very skinny legs, and he has fucking bones coming out his head. I know it's not bones, it's like fins or whatever. I don't know, I'm not a biologist, okay? I'm not a reptilian expert. I kind of like this design, to be honest. I don't know if he has a lab coat on in the series, or he's just a big monster. I'm pretty sure he's just a big monster. I don't know, he reminds me of the invincible villain Dinosaurus, who hasn't appeared in the show yet, by the way. I don't know if I like the big head proportions though. Like, I think this might be a C. And I know it's not very traditional comic look, so like, why is it a C, Andy? But it's because the changes they made, they're not bad or good, they're just different to me. So I don't think he deserves to go down or up because of them. Because, you know, like, you can still tell it's a lizard, it's just like not to my improvement, I guess. I know, this one I'm a bit flexible on. Alright, next let's go with Kraven the Hunter. I think this Kraven looks pretty sick. I know at the time it was a big thing to give characters just random armor metal pieces everywhere to make them look more modern. And I think they did a pretty decent job with this Kraven, like translating Kraven to this animated universe. Because in this universe, a lot of the villains are very teched up and stuff, so he would stand out a bit poorly if he didn't have a bit of metal. Would he have looked better without the undershirt and just as bare-chested? Because, you know, that's the traditional Kraven look, and that kind of represents his rawness, I guess. I'm being nitpicky at this point. I think Kraven is a B. He's a solid B. Alright, next let's tackle Carnage. Listen, somehow he looks really plain to me. I don't know why. Was he Peter? Or was he Harry? I'm pretty sure they didn't use Cletus Cassidy in this show, which obviously doesn't really affect how I think of the design. I don't know, this design of Carnage looks pretty weird to me. It doesn't really remind me of Carnage, it just looks too clean. This looks like those fan drawings of what Carnage would have looked like in Spectacular Spider-Man. His eyes are too rounded out. Is that what his eyes look like in the comics? No, I'm pretty sure they're all jagged like Venom's, right? I don't know, it just doesn't really give me serial killer vibes, which is what I want on Carnage, so I think I'm gonna give Carnage a D. Am I going crazy? He just looks really plain. Alright, next let's do Electro. So Electro, they obviously deviated from the traditional look and went for the Ultimate Comics look, which, you know what? I love. Like this Electro, it's a good, nice deviation from it, and they kind of did this pretty well. Thank God out of the versions they could have used, they didn't use Electro's first appearance in the Ultimate Comics series, because that looks pretty disastrous. And I'm a big fan of the classic wonky Electro look, okay, don't get me wrong. But this, I think they did a good job of adapting this Electro. Like from a split second, you can tell what this character is. You know what I mean? Like you can tell he's an electric-based villain. And when you understand something like that in a split second, then you know you're doing something right. So I think I'm gonna give Electro an A, I think, yeah. Alright, so next let's go into Rhino. So Rhino is obviously not just a guy in a big rubber suit, and nor is he a guy in a big mechanical suit either. They kind of just went all in. They went the Kraven the Hunter route. You know what? I respect it, because just before this we had Spectacular Spider-Man and they did the Rhino design pretty well, the traditional Rhino look. And the fact they kind of stepped away from that and gave it their own crack, I really appreciate that. And this Rhino, he looks pretty sick. So in the Ultimate Comics, Rhino has a big mech suit, and I think if they went with that version, that would have been pretty sweet as well.
Back away from me, Masked Avenger!
But this version, I'm pretty happy with it. He looks intimidating, he looks like a rhino. What more can you ask for, man? It doesn't really stand out to me for being like, whoa, they fucking nailed it. It's more like, they did a pretty good job. I was gonna give him a B, but looking at the characters I gave a B, he's definitely a tier above that, so I'm gonna have to give Rhino an A. Alright, next let's go with Scorpion. So this Scorpion wasn't actually what he looked like first when he first appeared in the show, because I'm pretty sure he was in the Iron Fist episode. So if you guys don't remember, or you didn't watch the series, Scorpion was actually from Kunlun. Like he was Iron Fist's rival, like he kind of took the place of Davos, the Steel Serpent. And then after Spider-Man helped Iron Fist in Kunlun, Scorpion started hating Spider-Man. It's a bit complicated, but I guess I always appreciate a good different backstory. And to be honest, that backstory, I don't really hate it, to be honest. It could have been worse, and you know, it's very different from the traditional Mac Gargan origin story, but I think they kind of made it work. Just looking at the Scorpion design after he comes to New York City or whatever, pretty good, man. I love how they integrated different shades of green, and I love his mask as well, because I liked his mask in the Iron Fist episode, and I'm so glad they kept it, because the silhouette and just the shapes of everything, it looks cool. Like, this is a badass Scorpion design. I don't care what anyone says. This looks like peak. It's not over designed either, you know? It's not filled with a bunch of mechanical junk on him. Like, this is a very modern, sleek Scorpion. I'm gonna stop glazing. This is an A. Alright, next let's go with Beetle. So Beetle is traditionally a C-list or D-list villain to Spider-Man, so I'm glad he got a big spotlight in the show. Well, not a big spotlight. I remember his first episode and I was like, wow, this is a badass character and I know nothing about him. Unfortunately, his 616 look doesn't look as cool as what they did here, as I found out, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Well, it kind of is, because when you compare these two, this one shits on the 616 look. This Beetle also looks better than the Ultimate Spider-Man comic look, which is, you know, surprising to say. They just rounded out all the aesthetics and features just really well, and they just, I don't know, the fact they made him a walking tank and at the same time, believably so, very cool. So when you compare him to all other versions, and, you know, okay, by the way, this is my personal ranking, okay, you guys can rank him whatever you want, okay? But this Beetle design, it really made me remember and know who Beetle is. So for that, as a personal favorite, this is very biased. I'm not claiming to be unbiased, okay? This is very subjective. I'm gonna put Beetle at an S. Alright, let's go with Green Goblin number 1. So Green Goblin number 1 is the ultimate comic form with a bunch of armor on him and with a glider for some reason. From the very first moment I saw this design, I kind of hated it, I'm not gonna lie. Because they kind of pussied out of committing to the whole like full goblin look, and they were like, okay, we don't want to upset them too much, so we're gonna give him some remnants of the traditional Green Goblin with the bombs and the glider. And I'm like, what is this abomination? Like, if you're a goblin that's that strong, do you need armor? And why are you flying around on a glider? That just looks really dumb. And yes, I am talking about design-wise, not story-wise, okay? Man, like, even when I look at it now, it hasn't really grown on me. I know a lot of people would like this design, but, like, I hate the non-commitment to either version, you know what I mean? Either make him a man in a costume or armor with a glider with bombs and shit, or make him a giant monster that looks like a devil, okay? Not this non-committal thing. And again, I do recognize they had to step away from the Spectacular Spider-Man / traditional version because they had just done that, and they just took some inspiration from the Ultimate Comics, which I love, but this, I'm like, no, please, no. I'm giving this Green Goblin a D. Not an E, it's not that bad. Alright, second Green Goblin version. See, this is what I mean, guys. This is what I want. Now, to be honest, I don't really know the context behind this version in the story because I didn't get up to this point in the seasons or whatever. This is the Ultimate Spider-Man Green Goblin look I was looking for, okay? This is a fucking demon, man. The horns add so much, the lack of armor just to show that he doesn't need any bullshit around him to fight anyone. Alright, this Green Goblin, I'm putting an A, bro. Alright, so let's go with Dr. Octopus, who I'm pretty sure was kind of the main bad guy of the show. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, okay? Shut up. So in the first version, in his first appearance, he just looked like a wet rag. He just was not in good condition at all. But you know what? I kind of like it. I can't lie, I kind of like it. I love his goggles with the cross eyes. That looked pretty sick. I love how they deviated from the traditional look because, you know, again, Spectacular Spider-Man had basically just done that and they had to do something to separate themselves, and yeah, they did a pretty good job. I also really like the color scheme as well. It gives a very grungy and depressing look, which isn't something we usually get with Dr. Octopus. Yes, he does have to lay off the Mountain Dew and the Doritos, yes, we know, but I think the Discord mod Doc Ock, it's a B, man, it's a B. It's not really an A because I know it's a, like, to me it's just a bit iffy, but I respect the changes. Alright, next, I'm pretty sure this is the next version of Dr. Octopus, Ballsack Dr. Octopus. So this guy, he's basically fucked, you know? Like, this is the Doc Ock we saw before Superior Spider-Man. Just brain damage, just can't move his limbs, he's just a ball, just carried around with tentacles. And for its purpose, I really like this design as well. Maybe I'm just a Doc Ock fan, maybe it's because I just saw Spider-Man 2 last night. This Doc Ock, I like it. I know a lot of people don't like it when they make changes to the Doc Ock design, like, oh, why are they making Doc Ock into a scrotum, man? But I think in terms of evolving a character's design within a story, this looks pretty good, man. I love the red, I love the black. Oh, I'm a sucker for black and red, guys. So I'm gonna give this Doc Ock an A. And I think I remember seeing a Reddit post about, you know, this design, and people were like, no, fuck this design, it looks like shit. I don't care. This looks menacing, man. Alright, the final version of Doc Ock we have is the muscular young version of Doc Ock. Now, as I've said, I'm the expert on the show. I think what happens is that he kind of rejuvenates himself and, you know, he gets a new body, basically. Now, this version of Doc Ock looks very similar to the Ultimate Comics Doc Ock, who was a very buff guy for some reason. Don't ask me why. He looks cool. It's not as exciting as the other Doc Ock designs, I'll say that, but it's pretty decent, I guess. Nothing to comment on. It's very traditional colors. It's not that traditional though. I think I'm gonna give him a B. It's not exactly like the comic version, so they kind of modernized them a bit, so I'll respect him for that. I'll give him a B. So there you go. There's my ranking for the Ultimate Spider-Man show character designs. I know there's a bunch of characters I may have missed and people are gonna get pissed, but you know, there's only so many characters I can do, okay? Also, considering I haven't seen this show in God knows how long, like, my goodness. And this show, I know, has some super fans out there. I'm not just a hater for no reason, okay? I can recognize the good in the show, if there is any good. Unfortunately, this show was cursed with walking in the shadow of Spectacular Spider-Man, so, you know, it was off to a very gritty start for fans and audiences. But I think slowly a lot of people come around to the show. I'm not speaking for myself. I haven't finished the show. I haven't seen it in, like, 7 or 8 years maybe, and that's being generous. And if you look at these designs, they hold up pretty well. Cause how do you go from this to Marvel Spider-Man in 2017? Like, I see images from that show and I'm like, what happened? Like, seriously, what happened? What happened? But yeah, man, this show did a lot of things right, you know? Like, I'm not really a fan of people just hating on this without watching the show, you know? But at the same time, it did have the extra challenge of separating itself from Spectacular Spider-Man, which I respect, okay? It's not an easy thing to do. Speaking of which, I did rank the character designs of Spectacular Spider-Man, so go watch that if you haven't already. And make sure to comment down below what you think of my rankings and what you would have changed and what your thoughts were on this show, because, you know, I'm kind of curious. Check out my Instagram, check out my letterbox, and check out my second channel, The And A Life, for random vlogs and videos. And yeah, I'll see you next week. See ya.
10-1-5 in the open.